Now, we're going to look inside this week's stock market rally. But first up, let's look at November's election. The Republicans taking the House, highly probable. The Senate, on the other hand, a close battleground. There could be a conservative majority emerging or some combination of gridlock. So what's this mean? Joining me to discuss is John Rutledge, former Reagan economic advisor, Michael Pansner, he's trader and author of Financial Armageddon, Stephan Abrams, managing partner at Bryden Abrams, and Tom Lydon, editor of ETFtrends.com and author of the ETF Trend Following Playbook. Is that right? Following. ETF Trend Following Playbook. Okay.
Thanks, Larry.
All right, Armageddon, I want to start with you. Michael Pansner. If you have a conservative majority one way or the other, or if you have gridlock that might stop legislation, would you become more bullish on stocks?
Exactly the opposite. I think we're in a new environment now. It's not the old days. It's not the days where you want government completely out of the scene, because I think we have all these unaddressed issues. And the fact is, I think people are looking for leadership. They're looking for people to set some direction. Whether Washington can do it or not, I'm not sure, but I certainly think it doesn't help that in a time like this, you have a big muddle going on down in our
big muddle. Tom Lydon, do you want a muddle or do you want gridlock, or what do you want?
Well, even if there is gridlock, Larry, the average American is truly going to be engaged with these elections. They're frustrated. And even though the market's looking good, corporate balance sheets are looking great, we're not going to break out of this trading range until the average American gets back into the market. And in order to do that, they've got to have confidence. So we need to have things like the Bush tax tax cuts extended. We need to look at Obamacare. We need to see things like Senator Hatch come in and take off the gloves like he just did. And we're going to see a lot of that in the next 60 days.
Yeah, Orrin Hatch had a lot of life to it. He could be the next finance chairman. John Rutledge, what are the odds here? I mean, it's interesting. You could have a Republican House and maybe a Democratic Senate, but the Senate would be a lot more conservative. I mean, these guys take a look at the returns, run from the hills away from Obama. A conservative majority, is that possible? Well, how do you see this story?
I think, Larry, it's very possible. You know, the big story in this election is that the amateur politicians, the citizen politicians, are taking over from the professionals. It's business people like our friend Linda McMahon that are coming in. They've never been in politics before. They know the spending is nuts and out of control. They know the debt's out of control. They know the taxes are out of control. They've built and run businesses. They know what it's like to not get credit. You can't hire people. They want to change something. So it's a little whiff of 1994 and maybe even more of 1980 here. And as far as gridlock, I love gridlock. You know, when Godzilla and Rodan are fighting each other, they're not fighting you. And that's really what's happening here. It's just that we need a certain amount of control in order to put the tax rates back down, to reverse Obamacare, and to unwind some of these financial regulations.
Healthcare regulations, stuff like that.
Absolutely.
Well, all right, Stephan Abrams, you listen to John Rutledge, you listen to everybody. Will gridlock restore this confidence word, which is what everybody on Wall Street and businesses talk about? Confidence, Stephan. How do you see it?
Well, look, Larry, I think a lot of the good points have just been made. On balance, gridlock will be positively viewed by investors because it will stop the headlong rush of punitive anti-business, anti-consumer legislation that's going on. But unfortunately, under gridlock, we're not likely to repair some of the damage or make some positive reforms to things like tax and regulatory policy.
That's your point. That's Michael Pansner's point. Now, let me ask you, Michael Pansner, because you are a pessimist, Armageddon, and you are consistent, nothing if not consistent. What do you want to see come out of Washington, D.C.? What needs to be fixed in your judgment?
Well, I think you need clarity. I think that's the first thing, and I don't think that's really a political opinion. That's really
But we've had clarity. We've had Obamacare, overregulation, higher tax threats, a myriad of... In other words, we've had left-wing statist clarity. So there's clarity, there's all kinds of clarity. I want you to be more specific.
Okay, let's talk about clarity of purpose in terms of both sides of the aisle. Let's talk about clarity of the mission. Why are we here? What are we trying to do? Are we trying to resolve short-term issues? Are we trying to resolve long-term structural problems? I think there's a big muddle between the long and the short term, the left and the right. It's a sort of bipolar existence, and I think you need to go towards some kind of uniformity.
John.
I think we need less clarity and more sanity in Washington, because essentially we've got the left wing now controlling policy for the purpose of redistributing wealth. That's destroying the economy and growth. If we can just get back to a legislature that understands they're there to try to help people do business, that'll be good. And if you want one policy, if I were there, federal workers are paid 30 to 50% more, including benefits, than private workers. I would freeze their pay, I would freeze their benefits until the private sector catches up. That'll take 10 to 15 years. And during that time, there would be a massive amount of budget savings. We need to get the budget back under control.
You know, it's interesting. Nobody's talking about cutting spending as a stimulant.
I know it.
To shrink the government sector and allow freedom in the private sector.
Right.
That could by itself help confidence right there. Would you buy that?
I believe it
I mean, I'm
would.
trying to figure out, are you coming at me from the left or the right on this clarity point? You haven't really clarified your clarity point, Mr. Armageddon.
I'm like the one-handed economist, you know. On the one hand,
That's what I'm worried about here. Now, you heard John Rutledge. He put his cards on the table. Where are you, cards? I see a lot of notes, but no cards.
I think the key here is that there are structural problems here that are the result of 20, 30, 40 years of bad behavior, bad policies, bad decision-making, and it's not going to be resolved by quick fixes, not going to be resolved by traditional approaches. And I take the view that, you know, throwing money at the problem won't help. On the other hand, I do think people need to be punished. I think people need to be, the businesses need to be rationalized. Financial industry needs a complete restructuring because it's a bit.
Well, you don't want the government to do that. I mean, Stephen Abrams, do you want the government to restructure industries? Listen to this guy, Panzer. Listen to him.
Let me put it to you this way, Larry. In terms of the stock market, the month of August was a very good month because that was the month with a 5% decline in the S&P, during which people came to realize that despite all the rhetoric, nothing much is going to be able to change the fact that this economy is going to grow for quite some time at a below average 1.5% to 2% rate. However, that rate is good enough so that well-run corporations, particularly the big multinationals that are serving the emerging economies, are going to have profit growth that is in excess of that.
All right, hold that thought. We're going to do the profit growth in the organic stock market, and the internals will get to you and Tom Lydon some more. I just want to do the politics first. Everyone's going to stay with us. We're going to turn our attention to Stefan's profits and the workings of the September rally. I want to know if the September rally can last. Keep it right here. We are the Kudlow Report, and during the break, I'm going to try to clarify Panzer. I'm still not sure what he's saying to me. This is very vexing, I must tell you.